Okay, and as I said, welcome to everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Dallari. I am the founder and president of the Save Deer Run Citizens Action Group. We were formed in February of 2019 as a nonprofit designed to help coordinate a citizens' response to the potential development of what is now the former country club at Deer Run, the closed golf course in the Deer Run subdivision. The purpose of tonight's virtual town hall is to achieve a few different things, but to give you all a basic rundown, I'm going to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes to give everyone a summary of some of the things that have happened in the last couple of months so that everyone's on the same page. I'm sure many of you, I recognize a lot of different names and I want to welcome everyone. I'm sure many of you have been following along on Save Deer Run's website. Perhaps you've read the Save Deer Run newsletter or followed us on social media. For those of you who have, thank you very much. For those of you who don't, sign up. We have a wonderful email list if you want to get the latest and greatest news. Follow us on Facebook and all of that wonderful stuff. It's all available at savedeerrun.com. After I spend about 5 or 10 minutes giving everyone the update, I will be introducing the county's representative that is going to be joining us here tonight, Commissioner Bob Dallari, who is our home District 1 commissioner. And he's going to speak for a few different minutes about what the current situation is from the county's end. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open this up to a Q&A style process whereby we want to hear what questions you all have as residents, as homeowners, as neighbors, as members of the Deer Run community. We want this to be a chance. If you have a question about what's going on in Deer Run, about what's going on with the development application, a lot of rumors are out there, I know, about things that people have heard from a friend of a friend of a friend, heard this, or, you know, X, Y, and Z. And so we want to give this people the ability to get factual information. If you have a question, now is going to be the time to ask it. Process by which this will occur, because we're going to have several different dozen people joining us this evening who may want to speak. There is a wonderful little thing called a chat box. It is down, depending on your layout, labeled chat. And if you have a question that you would like to ask Commissioner Dallari, I'm going to ask that you type the question in the chat box. And you don't need to wait for the Q&A to start. If you would like to do that while I'm doing my introduction or while he's doing his introduction, feel free to do so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading the questions from the chat box for Commissioner Dallari to answer. Can, mostly in chronological order until 8:30 is when we've scheduled to go this to. If for some reason, if we run out of questions or if I find that the same question is being asked repeatedly, then we will probably go ahead and wrap up a little early. But knowing this group as I know we all do, we have a lot of bright and curious people who I know have what I hope are not easy questions, because we all deserve to get really good answers. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to do so. So as I said, if you have a question, you may begin typing it in the chat box now. And then the last thing that I want to tell everyone, just as a little bit of a warning, not that anyone in our group would do this, because as I said, I've worked with almost every name that I see here. I've gotten to know you all very well in the last almost 2 years that this has been going on. And I know you are all fine, upstanding citizens, but I need to be, as I tell my students whenever we're getting ready to have a class, I need to be able to say I said this later on, just in case a bad apple gets into the bunch. I will only be asking the commissioner questions related to the Deer Run situation. And by that, I mean issues related to either the Deer Run development application, the Deer Run golf course, the Deer Run subdivision. Anything that is not related to Deer Run, this is really not the place or the time to ask those questions. And so I will be skipping any questions that may talk about things like, you know, for example, a very hot topic I know is the rural boundary. It's a topic that's very important, very near and dear to many of our hearts. This, however, is not the forum to really ask about that. So obviously I would not answer questions or ask questions for Commissioner Dallari for the rural boundary, just to give everyone an All right, so that having been said, where do we stand? Because it's been quite a long time since I've had a chance to address some of you directly. And it's been a very busy few months for many of us. To give you an idea, and now I'm going to take off my individual hat and I'm going to speak on behalf of the entire board of directors for Save Deer Run. For those of you who don't know, Save Deer Run has a board of directors that is made up of 7 very hardworking and dedicated individuals. Many of them are representatives of individual HOAs. For example, Deer Run 10 Kings Point has a representative. The Villages has a rep. We have a rep from Sterling Park Housing Association and several different others. And what we've been doing is trying to figure out a way to coordinate. As many of you all know, Deer Run has no master association. We have 22 at last count individual homeowners associations, 2 property owners associations, 1 housing association. And so what Save Deer Run has been trying to do is coordinate as best we can among all of those very important, very opinionated, very divergent groups. And I'm proud to say that we have 15 HOAs of the 22 active in the subdivision have either officially affiliated with Save Deer Run, and also 1 POA, unofficially at least, is, and 1 housing association. So we've got at last count somewhere of the 3,000 individual homes in Deer Run. We have about, I think at last count, 1,800 homes represented by the different HOAs who have become affiliated in some way. So really the starting point, I think, for most of us would be when the development application was submitted by the owner of the former country club at Deer Run. It was submitted to the county in August, and there was, in the process of what happens, for those of you who don't know or perhaps may be unfamiliar with or have forgotten how a development process works, initially when a person wants to build something, will go to the county and they'll say, okay, here's my idea, here's what I want to build. And they submit something called a pre-application. That pre-application for the Deer Run Golf Course was submitted back at the end of February of 2020. And through the feedback process, county staff evaluated it, gave comments, and then the next step after that pre-application is submitted is usually the owner or his representative will meet with county staff at something called a development review committee meeting. That meeting only happens if the applicant decides to meet with county staff. They are not required to. For whatever reasons, and I can't speak to why or why not, all I can tell you is that back in the spring, maybe it was related to COVID, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but for whatever reason, the owner of the golf course decided after he received county comments in written form on his pre-application not to proceed with a development review committee meeting. So March turned into April, April turned into a very long summer for those of us who have children who were helping each other and driving us crazy during the summer months. And for those who don't have children and were perhaps working remotely or were furloughed, also those of you who are trying to keep your sanity, very quickly we found the month of August was upon us. And in August, what ended up happening is the owner of the former country club at Deer Run submitted his formal application, which is technically a separate document from what was in the spring. And this is when the county now received from the former country club's owner his formal plans. He said, okay, I own this land, this is what I want to build. And that was submitted to county staff in August. County staff then took 3 weeks to review that. And it was reviewed by something called the Development Review Committee, the DRC, as I mentioned. And throughout the process of the DRC meeting, what ends up occurring is all the different county departments involved, from everything to planning and zoning to environmental services and a whole slew of other very hardworking ladies and gentlemen, take a look at the plan and they say, okay, clarified, or we have an issue with this and we need to ask you some questions. It took 3 weeks, but at the beginning of September, the Development Review Committee sent written commentary back to the applicant saying, these are our comments. Now, do you wish to meet with the Development Review Committee? And at that particular time, the owner of the golf course said, yes, I do wish to attend the DRC meeting. That meeting was held in beginning or mid-September. I don't remember which off the top of my head. But what ended up occurring is there was a 26-minute meeting that was held, and it was last month. And for those of you who actually went down to Sanford and thought it was going to be in person, I do apologize because we did have some technical glitches when they had to convert it to a Zoom meeting. But at the course of that meeting, what became very clear, because this was really the first opportunity that residents had had to see what did the owner of the golf course think, what did he want to do, what did he want to accomplish, and what ended up occurring in this 26-minute meeting, which is available if any of you have not had a chance to see it. There is a recording up on Save Deer Run's YouTube channel. We put it up so that everyone can see it. What became very clear were there were a number of issues that with this development application that needed to be corrected because they were either factually inaccurate or just problematic in a number of different ways. To give everyone an example of what I mean by that, one of the things that the applicant's representative continued making reference to was the fact that there was a single master association in Deer Run that had the legal authority to speak for all HOAs and residents, that the applicant had met with that master HOA and had gotten feedback on the plan, and several other comments to that effect were made. And so when I heard this, and having spoke with my other directors and a number of the other HOA presidents, what we felt is that as a board who was designed to try to advocate for the citizens of Deer Run, we felt it was a responsibility to take all of the information that we've been collecting for almost the last 2 years, evidence specifically that refuted some of these claims that the applicant made during the development committee review meeting. And I personally had a meeting down at the County Services Building in Sanford. Was very honored and pleased to have Commissioner Dallari agree to meet with me. Rebecca Hammock, who is the head of the Department for Planning and Zoning, attended that meeting remotely. Had one of the county lawyers' representatives. And what we did is we went through really what was just the desire of myself, having represented Save Deer Run, to submit in writing forms of evidence that, for example, legally, very clearly in writing, disputed the fact, as I mentioned the earlier example, that there is no master HOA, and a number of other different things. And we ended up submitting a document that was almost 150 pages in length, which is now fortunately a part of the public record. And we basically waited. And so we fast forward a couple more weeks. The applicant now has a couple of different options before him. If he were to continue on saying, I want to go ahead and I want to continue with this development application, then he would have to address a number of the concerns that the county had raised, because there were, as I said, some significant problems that had been identified, and he would have to resubmit his development application to the Development Review Committee. As of today, that has not been done. And so we're kind of waiting in pause, if you will, for where we stand on the development application. Now, the other situation of what is going on parallel to the development application, at the same time all of this is going on, was a situation that actually dates back to last May, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because I know Commissioner Dallari wants to say something, and honestly, you guys probably are sick of me flapping my gums, so I'm going to wrap up here. I will simply say that back in May, from the commission side of things, there was some movement on it, and over the last about month and a half, there have been some positive movements on what we hope may be a solution to all of this. So that having been said, that kind of wraps up my little spiel. What I'm now going to go ahead and do is I'd like to introduce, for those of you who do not know him, although we have 5 county commissioners who serve at large in Seminole County. That means that although they must live in the district from where they are from, they serve at large all the citizens of Seminole County. But usually preference, when an issue like this comes before the board, usually the commission lets the home district commissioner take point on something like this. So Commissioner Bob Dallari is the District 1 commissioner, and he has been very, I do want to say, very helpful, very open, and very willing to speak with not only myself, but different residents in Deer Run. He's met with several of you, as I'm sure some of you have heard through the grapevine. And I want to say, if nothing else, thank him for coming out tonight to let us pick his brain and see where things stand from the county side. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him.
Thank you, Deborah. Again, my name is Bob Dallari. I'm one of your county commissioners here. Also, for the record, tonight we have another county commissioner with us, Lee Constantine. Commissioner Constantine's with us. And I think it's important that Commissioner Constantine is here so he can hear what your questions are firsthand. The reason why I'm saying that Commissioner Constantine is here, I wanted to inform you that there are certain rules that we have to follow as elected officials by the government of sunshine. And what I mean by that is that I cannot have discussions with another commissioner outside of a public forum. Even though this is public in your community, this is not what we call a public meeting. So Commissioner Constantine and I cannot talk about what we're going to do at a meeting and how I would vote or how he would vote. We can talk factual. We can't talk about future. We could talk about things in the past. And I just wanted to make sure if someone does ask a question that is on the edge, I will definitely be bringing that to your point. But thank you, Deborah, for putting this together. I think it's important that we have as much information out there, because the bottom line is this is your community. This is where you live. This is where you and your family are residing. So I'm glad that we're getting as much information out there. If by chance I didn't answer your question or you have additional questions, don't hesitate to contact myself or Commissioner Constantine. Just call our office. You can email us. You can just go on the website. It's very easy to find us. Trust me, it is.
Bob, if I can just say also, Deborah, if there's any time or anybody else wants to ask Bob a specific question that he has already indicated the ground rules, I'll be happy to get off. I just wanted to, by invitation of Bob, to be here and to listen also to your concerns. I was at your debate that you had earlier, so I'm here to learn. And also, if Commissioner Dallari asks me to say something or get involved, I'll be happy to do that too.
Thank you, Commissioner. So let's back up a couple of months. As Deborah was saying, that the applicant for the past couple of years has been saying that he wants to develop this piece of property. I will tell you that I've gotten many phone calls and emails from many residents in Deer Run about this. And for several months, if not a couple of years, I've had to respond that I had no additional information. I also want to tell you that I'm very impressed by your community. Everyone's been very respectful. Everyone has been willing to listen, and everyone has been very cordial. So I think that's very important. And I want to thank you all for that. Now that the application and the developer wants to move forward, prior to this application, one of the things we have in Seminole County is we actually use the groundwater to produce our drinking water. And there are several. Each one of our cities have a water plant. The county has a couple of water plants. And when you pull water out of the ground, it's called a consumptive use permit. And the acronym that we use is called a CUP, C-U-P, consumptive use permit. And it's controlled by the state of Florida. And the state regulates how much water we can pull out of the ground. And one of the things that we've done different in Seminole County opposed to other counties is what we did is we actually blend our CUP, because we have water wells. Dodd and Dyke, there's one. We have another one down by Yankee Lake. We have one in Lake Mary. They're all over the county. And we put them all together and we blended our CUP so we can actually use what we call a hydraulic model. So we can show the state of Florida how the aquifer is kind of interconnected and how we can pull water. Well, with happens is that we monitor that on an annual basis, and we have to do reports to the state of Florida. Back in May, this will all make sense to you in a couple of minutes. Back in May, our county government, our water department, has been doing a work session with us. And they were telling us that, okay, commissioners, we have to start thinking about what we're going to do in the future about our groundwater and how we're going to be providing water to our citizens. And what they're telling us is that in the future, we don't know when, the state of Florida is going to want to reduce how much water we're pulling out of the ground. Even though we're growing in population and we need more water, and rightfully so, I'm on their side on this, we need to preserve the groundwater in our aquifer, which I think is a good thing. The environment is always very important to all of us. And so the question came up, where are we going to get our water? And so their question was, well, the state of Florida is going to want us to do alternate water supplies. It's a big fancy word, and you can check the tape. I said, well, wait a minute. Now, what do you mean by alternate water supplies? Because to me, alternate water supply means you're getting water from somewhere else. You're either getting it from a lake, a stream, a river, or a pond. You're getting it somewhere, because that's correct. We just haven't decided where we can get this water from, but we have to start looking at it. And so as the meeting progressed, I started asking more questions about this. And I said, well, wait a minute, time out. I said, we have what we call a blended consumptive use permit, where we're actually allowed to blend our water under the aquifer in other parts of the county to one consumptive use permit. Have we ever looked at looking at some of the golf courses? And I talked about Deer Run in that meeting. Deer Run is a golf course that's closed. And they've been irrigating their golf course. I can't tell you how many months or how many years they've been doing it, but it's been a long time. And they have several wells. And each one of those wells have a consumptive use permit. How do I know it? I checked. It's all public record. And I said, well, if we could obtain the Deer Run golf course, we could potentially control that consumptive use permit, cap those wells. And if we petition the state and look at our blended consumptive use permit and can show them through computer modeling that we can blend it in with our other wells, we can potentially have a bigger cup so that when we reduce it, we don't have to reduce it that much because we have another water supply here that we are accounting for. And staff said, well, yeah, theoretically, that does make sense. I said, and it's been done. It's been done in a couple of counties around the state. Not that often, but it's been done. And I said, okay, there's another thing that we can also look at, that we have a very strict fertilizer ordinance because most people don't realize that when you put fertilizer on the ground, those chemicals go into the groundwater, and we as the government, we have to clean that up. That's called TMDLs, total maximum daily loads of pollutants. It's pollutants. Well, if we're not building, if we don't have a golf course, and if we don't have homes, we're not putting fertilizer on that golf course. So we're actually saving money by not fertilizing because we don't have to clean it up. Because that's correct. So let's put that into the formula. And I said, there's one more thing that we can put in the formula. And I says, we can do restoration of wetlands. State of Florida loves when you take wetlands that have been damaged and you restore them, it actually restores the aquifer below them. That's very true, Commissioner. I said, so if we do those three things, we can figure out what that cost, and we can try to figure out, we don't have to go and pull that water out of the river, because now if we pull that water out of the river, now we're going to build a bigger water plant. Well, yeah, we would have to. Well, there's money there that we would save. So that money that we're saving, that we're not building that water plant, we can actually use to pay for Deer Run. We just have to determine what that cost and what that savings would be. And the county staff looked at me, and this is all public records. Well, that's very difficult to do, but theoretically it is correct. And I said, well, you're all a bunch of great engineers, and I know if you all put your brains together, you could figure it out, because I know you're that good. And so we talked about that, and the county staff, the county commission, and Commissioner Constantine was there, basically figure it out. So they did that, and I think that was in May. So then we've been waiting for the report to come back. The county manager was supposed to give us a report. So back in September, I asked her for an update. Well, prior to my asking the question in September, I actually met with the developer. And I didn't meet with Bob Dallari, I met with one of his partners. And I told him, I said, you know, there is a potential. And I say that because we haven't made the vote yet. So I have to say potential, because otherwise that would be a violation of the Sunshine Law, because Constantine is here. There's a potential of us looking at trying to purchase the golf course. And Chad Bartley's basically said, love to sell it to you. Great. How do we do that? I'm not here to negotiate a price. I'm here to put all the cards on the table face up. He looked at me and goes, I don't know, Commissioner, how would you do that? And I said, well, I would ask the county staff and the county commission at the next county commission meeting, which was in September, to put a timeline together of what needs to be done to look at the groundwater, the fertilizer, the wetlands and all that, and also look at the property appraisal of the land to figure out what it would cost, and then meet with you. But we'd also need to get input from the citizens so we have full transparency. So everything is done in the sunshine, in the public. But more importantly, if we were to do this, I would need to have a formal commitment from you that you're willing to put your project on hold. And he looked at me and goes, well, how long would I have to put it on hold for? I said, well, until we actually come up with this plan, a timeline, and the timeline would actually have milestones so you can keep us accountable and the citizens keep us accountable, and we're not just dragging our feet to the end of time. He goes, all right, let's do that. So then at the next county commission meeting in September, I actually told the board that I met with the developer, Chad Bartley, and I told him exactly what I just told you. And the commission said, yeah, let's do it. Let's put the timeline together. So then I think it was at this last commission meeting, which was Tuesday, not today, but this past week, I asked for an update. Our county manager, Nicole Guillet, basically said that she'll have that timeline and that milestones for us at our next county commission meeting, which should be October 27th, which should be almost in 2 weeks from now. Great. At that point, we would look at it. I think Commissioner Lockhart, if you check the tape, basically said, I want to make sure that when we do this, that we're actually setting up a blueprint for other golf courses. Well, funny you should say that, because in this discussion that we had back in May, we also talked about the Okava Golf Course. The Okava Golf Course is in Commissioner Constantine's district. I've had a brief conversation with those residents last week, and they're also excited about it. That golf course is still open, still operational. And I've also told them that at some point in the future, I don't know when that would be, because we don't own the golf course. It's owned by a private entity. I said, they will probably be closing your golf course too. But what I'd like to do is evaluate not just Deer Run, but also Okava Golf Course at the same time. I think it behooves us to look at two golf courses at the same time, that they're different, but they're similar because they're owned by the same developer or the same owner. And we get the discount because of the quantity of scale, so to speak. If he's selling two golf courses, we should get a hell of a better deal than one golf course. We have a little bit of history with golf courses. Commissioner Constantine, a couple years ago, was able to work with Sable Point, that golf course. He actually was able to work with the developer, and the developer developed a small portion of the golf course and gave the rest of the property to, I believe, the Sable Point property owners, and gave them money as seed money to actually maintain it for quite a bit of time. That was a totally separate deal. I'm saying this because each golf course is totally different. No one golf course is the same. The county did buy a golf course back in 2018 or 16 called Rolling Hills. The Rolling Hills golf course actually came to us, citizens there, came to us in 2014. And that golf course was owned by John Morgan for the people. And he wanted to develop that golf course. We were able to purchase it, and we're selling another piece of property. We're transferring stuff, but and I can get into as much detail as you want on that. But at first, just like everything else, this is all new to the County Commission. It took us quite a bit of time to get through it. With Rolling Hills, many people said that it couldn't be done. In fact, there was even some commissioners that said that it couldn't be done. Well, presently, fast forward to 2020, we now own Rolling Hills Golf Course, and it's a passive recreational park. The reason why I'm telling you this is because my vision for Deer Run is a passive recreational park. I've said that not just to your residents, but I've also said that to the County Commission in a public forum. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because with Rolling Hills, we actually approved its first phase of the master plan for that passive recreational park. Deborah's sharing a screen right now, and what that screen actually shows you, I took pieces of a presentation that our staff showed us. And Rolling Hills, if you look at the top left-hand corner, Rolling Hills Golf Course closed in 2014. Then we had a public workshop in April of 2016. Then we submitted an application from the state in October of 2016 because we wanted to move certain rights from another piece of property we had that the state we wanted to sell. And the state said it couldn't be done, so we actually petitioned the state, and the state basically said, at first, we've never done this, but as we petitioned them in October 26th of 2016, we actually approved the purchase of the Rolling Hills Golf Course. It was a conditional approval from the state, and that was in February 7th of 2017. Again, government doesn't move fast. You can see by these dates. We had to have an environmental analysis, and that was in February of 2017, and that actually took place to November of that year. Then we had to mitigate and do remedies for that, and it was approved in February of 2018. We had to go to the public because that wasn't in our financial plan. So the citizens of Rolling Hills was willing to do what they call an MSBU, it's a taxing district, and they approved that on March 1st of 2018. And so what they did to be a partner with us, they taxed themselves $1.5 million over a number of years. And that overwhelmingly was supported. And it had a lot of input, a lot of public meetings, a lot of data that went into that. And then the vote was completed on April 4th of 2018 that was actually done. Well, I'm telling you this because here we are, what is it? This is October of 2020. And now we just approved the master plan. So there's a lot of different things happening. Deborah, can we go to the next slide, please? Well, I'm telling you this, no, there's the golf course of Rolling Hills. That was an old clubhouse. We acquired the property on August 31st, 2018. That clubhouse which is in such disarray that we leveled it and we demoed it, and we had to put that, we actually took it to the landfill. There was a pool in the background. The pool was of a position that we had to remove the pool. And now that is just a flat, grassy knoll right now. We're keeping it a flat knoll. It's all grass because we haven't decided with the community. The community is very involved. We haven't decided what to do with it. Can we go to the next slide, please? The reason why I want to show this slide is because if you look on the right-hand side, due to the pandemic, there's been a lot of more activity on our parks, our trails, our natural lands. Our trails have increased 210%. On natural lands, people have been doing 690% people have been more traffic going to the natural lands. We have 196 more programs, 64,000 more residents have been going to our programs. Our parks have been over flooded. You go down to Red Bug Lake Park on any given weekend, any given night, you cannot find any vacant space. In fact, our libraries have increased by 190%. It is totally amazing. And I'm saying this because we need, as a county, and this is the pitch I'm going to make to all the county commissioners, I'm sorry, Lee, but I'm going to make to the county commissioners that we need to keep on increasing our parklands and our open space. I believe that Deer Run should have more open space. By saying that you have Redbug Lake Park in your area, I think it's a misnomer. The reason why I say that is because Redbug Lake Park is such a regional park that there's not much available space there for the residents to truly enjoy. Let's go to the next slide, please. We have an active web page, and it's a link that we have that anyone in Rolling Hills or anyone from outside the area can actually go on there, and you can see the overall master plan. You can actually look at the historical background. You can look at the photo tour that we did. We have a video of the plan presentation. We have comments from the map. We have written surveys and comments from the residents. I'm showing you this because as we move forward, what I like to do at Deer Run is very much similar to what we did with Rolling Hills, and actually have the community very involved and engaged so that it's their park, it's their community, it's where they live. They not only should have ownership, they should be proud of it. And I know that you would. And I think that moving forward, you're going to be very proud of what we've been doing. In fact, can we go back to the Hollywood Square thing? I don't know what you call it, where we actually see each other. Get rid of the, yeah. Thank you. One of the things that we did, we got some complaints about some of the stormwater issues. So on that golf course, there are 3 different areas. There's stormwater that the developer owns, there's stormwater that the county owns, and there's stormwater that some of the HOAs or PAs own. I can't tell you which one, who owns what. But we actually went into the areas that we believe that we have control over. I actually toured a couple of them last week, and we actually cleaned up quite a bit of the stormwater. A little bit more history about Rolling Hills. When the residents were coming to us about Rolling Hills, they were talking about how the grass was not being maintained, and in some places it was over 2-3 feet tall. Our county code at that time was a maximum height of 24 inches. So they were asking us, what can we do to remedy this? Well, our attorneys were telling us, well, it's 24 inches, so all you can do is, once it gets to 24 inches, you can go to code enforcement. Well, then Commissioner Constantine basically, well, that's ridiculous. Why does it have to be 24 inches? And the county attorney says, that's what you all set. Well, it wasn't us, it was a past commission. Well, Commissioner Constantine, well, let's change it. And then we, the other 4 county commissioners, looked at Constantine and basically, what do you want to change it to? He goes, well, I don't know if I can get support. I mean, I'm probably going to go to 12 inches. He goes, I'd love to go to 8 inches. And you can check the video, it's all there. He goes, I don't think I'm going to get support. And so I looked at Constantine from the other end of the dais. I'm like, Commissioner, why don't you go there? You may get support. He goes, all right, I'll do it. So Commissioner Constantine made the motion that the maximum height of grass in our county is maximum 8 inches. I seconded that motion. It passed unanimously. And so anywhere in the county, if it's unincorporated, in other words, it's not dictated by a city, the maximum height of any grass, maximum is 8 inches. So you have Constantine to thank for that. And I will tell you that the Rolling Hills Golf Course was cited multiple times before we purchased it. And I will also tell you that, and I don't remember who I met with, but I met with several residents there on the Deer Run Golf Course. I actually walked it and I was on a golf cart tour. The golf course was so wet, we got actually stuck, but that's another issue. We actually looked at the grass, and it was taller than what it was supposed to be. In fact, I was horrified because there was multiple dead trees all around the golf course that were not supposed to be there, and they weren't picked up. And so we got code enforcement involved, and he may not be keeping the golf course as pristine as it should be, but we're trying to stay on top of it. Trying to think what else. I think I covered just about everything. Deborah, you there? Deborah Bauer? Okay.
Yes,
oh, there's one more thing. So Deborah Bauer did come to my office because she was asking me questions about how do we submit some of these documents into the public records. Come to my office. We'll have the county attorney there or the planning department there. You can submit it and you get a receipt and we'll figure out how to do it. So we asked both entities to be there, and Deborah came with almost a file cabinet, and submitted a bunch of documents. And we now have all that, as Deborah Bauer stated, and that's part of the public record. Now, I will tell you that if this doesn't move forward, where the county doesn't purchase it, and the developer wants to move forward, there are a lot of things he has to do. The biggest thing he has to do is he has to show open space. Presently, he has to show, I believe it's 20% open space, and he has to show us that calculation and how that actually happens. You as residents will be given the ability to speak in a public forum, to tell us what your thoughts are, what you think are issues, and you need to tell us whatever your thoughts are in that public meeting, not outside of that public meeting. That meeting legally is considered quasi-judicial proceedings. What that means is we become the legislators and the court at the same time. What that means is that we can only look at the evidence that's presented to us at the time of that hearing. So if I'm told something prior to that meeting, legally, I'm not allowed to take it into account. That's why when people email us stuff, we always submit what we call our ex parte communication into the public meeting so that all your emails are taken into account. Every time I have a meeting, just like this is on my calendar, this meeting notice will be on my submittal as well. Anything that's given to Constantine, the same thing. And I just want to make sure that we have that housekeeping done. But I believe that right now we're heading down the right path. Right now we're trying to put the timeline together with the milestones. I believe that if the timeline is correct, the property owner will put his project on hold. That's when our county staff gets involved. That's when the developer legally puts his project on hold, and that's when the community gets involved. There's going to be several workshops about what's happening. And I think that's it. Deborah?
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Dallari. Before we go to the Q&A, I just want to make 2 points. For number one, for those of you who don't know, in my day job when I'm not rabble-rousing on News 13, I actually am a college history professor, which means I'm a historian at heart. And so the joke in my family is I'm usually a very mundane person, but I'm an excellent researcher. So when you give me something to research, boy, did they choose the right community, choose the right person. So that's why he got his luggage case of documents. Wanted to make sure I had all of our historical background presented. Going back all the way, quite interestingly, to the 1971 public hearing when Deer Run was actually created, which was a fun day in the county archives, but that's another story for another time. The second thing I want to let everyone know is that as we're going forward, we've gotten some questions in the chat box. I'm going to be taking them fairly chronologically, but if you have questions, please type them, because this is how you will get your question. We're not going to be using raised hands or anything like that. Go to your chat box, type question, and we will do our best to get to it. So with that having been said, our first question is from Jeannie Maloney, who go into a little greater detail. Can you explain who finally ordered the waterway cleaning of the clogged drainage on the golf course, and when and why that was done?
There was a couple of issues. We all know that we're in a wet season right now. We've been threatened by quite a bit of rain, and we're in hurricane season. We wanted to make sure that whatever happens weather-wise, that the Deer Run community doesn't flood. And to do that, we needed to make sure that the waterways that we control are maintained. If there are waterways that the developer controls, we wanted to make sure that those were maintained. So we put a work order in to our county staff to be ensured that no matter how much rainfall we had, and there was a potential amount of rainfall with the hurricanes that are in the Gulf Coast and the Gulf of Mexico, we wanted to make sure that the waterways that we controlled and the developer controlled were operational. And so that's why the crews went in there to do what we needed to be doing.
Okay, second question is from T. Vargas. And if the current application that is before planning and zoning were to eventually be built, and this is getting into a little hypothetical situation, but can you explain how the county would try to mitigate traffic on Eagle Circle, and could that include a widening to 4 lanes?
So with every project, when you get to there are certain projects, when you look at development, depending upon how many units you're putting in, there is a threshold. If you go above a threshold, you're required to do a traffic volume analysis to make sure that there are enough capacity on the roads that you're affecting. This project and Deer Run is such a small area and it's such a large project that I'd be asking for them to do an analysis of the traffic volumes to make sure that not just Eagle Circle has capacity and is going to flow, but all the entrances. And there's really only, if you look at the entrances, really one way in and one way out off of Red Bug Lake Road. So that's truly a pinch point. I mean, you can go down by, I forget the park. There's a park there that one of the HOA owns that goes to Castleberry. That's a side street. I would not be wanting to be, one of my concerns would be, I wouldn't want to put traffic on residential neighborhood roads. And so we'd want to make sure that there's enough traffic volume, not just on Eagle Circle, but on Red Bug and that intersection of Red Bug and Eagle Circle. But he would have to do a traffic analysis to show us that. And if there's no capacity and he needs to figure it out, how he's going to get capacity, and he has to pay for it. And if he can't pay for it, potentially, you know, I don't know what would happen at that point. Then we need to start making decisions. Is this really the right project?
Okay, tailing on that question about traffic, the question is, the application contains a traffic study that was dated 2017 that is woefully out of date, particularly with reference to the intersection of Red Bug Lake Road and Eagle Circle. Traffic study was an older, out of date traffic study, and elaborate on how an updated traffic study would be needed for further application submission.
Okay, I'm not a traffic engineer, but one of the issues with doing traffic studies right now is because of the pandemic, the traffic volumes and patterns have changed drastically. And I, for one, believe that because of people staying home more, because people have not gone back to work, because people have been furloughed or people have lost their jobs, you really can't do a traffic study today. I think you have to wait. I believe you may be able to do some of it looking at existing volumes, but I would want to be talking to our engineers on how you get that realistic number. And I think that is a potential issue as we move forward to make sure that there is enough road capacity on Eagle Circle. And I do know that when you talk about Eagle Circle in morning rush hours or in evening rush hours, there are certain pinch points of it that are major problems. And there's also speeding problems. That's why you have speed tables.
Okay, our next question goes from traffic to water.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please explain what the consumptive use permit is, which I think you've already done a little bit, but maybe you can go into detail with reference to the rights that the golf course permit would enable the county to obtain if they did purchase the course. Okay. And if the county did purchase the course, would an extra water treatment plant have to be built in Deer Run?
The state of Florida, well, in the United States, there is Eastern water law and Western water law. Obviously, because we're in Florida, we follow the Eastern water law, which is east of the Mississippi. What that means is that on the east side of the United States, Eastern water law means that local government or state government controls the groundwater. So what happens with the state of Florida, they break up the state into water management districts. Our district is called the St. John's Water Management District because of the St. John's River. All of Seminole County is in that district. So what they do is they actually monitor how much water you pull out of the ground. They also monitor how much water you pull out of the river too. They want to make sure that people are not being pigs about it and people are not wasting water. So we're allowed to get X amount of millions of gallons of water out of the ground because of our population base, as well as the 7 different cities, as well as some private entities that are allowed to pull water. Golf courses, just like Deer Run, have these wells, and there are several wells on Deer Run, and they have to have a consumptive use permit. Their consumptive use permit, and I'm rounding numbers, so don't hold me to the exact number because I'm going to round up a little bit. On an average day, the Deer Run golf course is allowed to pull 200,000 gallons of water out of the ground a day for irrigation purposes. It's a lot of water. Well, if you look at how much water that would take if we cap those wells, and you can show that hydrologically through computer modeling that you can actually kind of move that water under the ground modeling wise, that you can pull it up. We have a water plant by Dodden Dyke. You may have seen that. It's a big water plant that we have there. And we provide drinking water for southeast Seminole County there, not too far from Deer Run. If we did not pull the water out of the ground and you go to a surface water, we have the ability, and we did this in 2007. We put in a water plant over on northwest part of the county called Yankee Lake, which is west of city of Sanford, and we're allowed to pull water out of the St. John's River. River water is a lot dirtier than groundwater. So even though right now the river water that we pull off of the river, we only use for irrigation and it's not drinkable. For us to make that drinkable, we're going to have to spend tens of millions of dollars to build that plant and then move water around again. But if we were able to cap the wells in Deer Run and hydrologically show that that water can be moved over by Dodden Dyke, we already have a water plant there. And so instead of building a new water plant, now you just have to buy new equipment or bigger pumps, and the cost is drastically lower than building a brand new water plant. That's how that works. Hopefully that answers the question.
Next question is a little bit of a hypothetical,
yeah.
But assuming a fairy godmother granted Deer Run's wish to become a park, to have the former golf course become a park, would it be reasonable to perhaps look at the use of banning St. Augustine grass in a future passive recreation park to save water?
Funny you should bring that up. And the reason why I'm saying that tongue in cheek is because presently we're redoing our land development code. And the land development code is how we not only approve development, but also approve redevelopment. And the conversation has come up, should we be doing just that? And so we're actually looking at that. We haven't made the decision yet, but you could do that on a case-by-case basis. And if we did a passive recreational park, we probably wouldn't be using, and I'm just talking here, St. Augustine grass because it's so expensive and it's so much of a water hog. Bahia is so much more easier to maintain and it uses a lot less water. So that'd be something that we could potentially look at. And the beauty about if we did a passive recreational park, you, the residents of Deer Run, would have input on that.
All Our next question would like you to speak again. You've touched on this a little bit, but perhaps you can go into further detail because I know, I believe it was at the September 26th commission meeting. One of the things that Chairman Zembauer mentioned, in addition to the fact that apparently to his aid and to himself, Deer Run is a very vocal group. So way to go, guys. Park, yeah. Redbug Lake Park and other parklands nearby, county parks nearby, are very in high demand, as you've already said. So how could the purchase and conversion of Deer Run into a passive recreation park help address the shortage of parkland in this part of Seminole County? I believe they're calling it the Redbug Corridor. Can you speak to that somewhat?
So with parklands, you need two things. You need open space so people can enjoy it, because not everyone's playing baseball or softball or tennis, and you want open space. So because if Deer Run is about 3,000 homes plus or minus, you probably know that number better than I do, Deborah. There has to be so much open space over by Redbug Lake Park so people can actually enjoy it. We wouldn't be pushing people over to your area, but your 3,000 homeowners now would not have to go to Redbug Lake Park to enjoy their open space, because now you have your own open space. That's how that works.
Okay. This is a question for you and/or Commissioner Constantine. I don't know if he's still here. It depends on which one of you has the better memory, but we have a question which the historian in me loves. For way back in 2016, when the issue of Rolling Hills came before the commission, do you happen to remember what the vote was for the purchase of the course, and who voted in favor and who voted against?
That's an easy one. I was on the county commission at that time. It passed 5-0. And I believe the commissioners at that time was Bob Dallari, Carlton Henley, John Horan, Brenda Carey, and Dick Van der Weide.
A question from Mr. Ron Gregory asks, when can residents expect to know if Mr. Della Russo has formally agreed to table his development application in the process that you've lined out?
So our first step would be this timeline, and the board at the October 27th meeting, when the county manager presents it to us, the board would have to say, great timeline, or do we need to add things, or is this realistic? So that's why I'm hoping that 2 weeks from now, we should have a timeline. And then from that meeting, or that accepting of that timeline, then we would have to ask staff in our legal department to meet with the property owner. And he may want to add something, he may want to take something out. I really can't say that yet, because I have not seen the timeline or the milestones. Once the county manager gives it to us in that meeting, it is public information and you will see it. I'll make sure of it. And then you'll have input. And at some point after that, depending upon what it says and what the property owner thinks or doesn't want to do or not do, then I have to go back to the board for us to approve, to basically approve it. And this is what we're going to do.
Next question, again, a little bit of a hypothetical, but, and this is an either or. So if the applicant decides to go forward with his development application, and or if Seminole County were to purchase the golf course to turn it into a passive park, what would be the impact or interaction with the school district in response to Sterling Park Elementary for either of those possibilities?
So when you do a development, you have to go to the school board, and they have what they call a SCAL letter. And that is basically a district capacity letter to see if there's capacity in the school district for students. The district acts, not with us, they act on their own, and they will give the developer either a letter of approval or a letter of denial that there is capacity or not capacity. So that way, when they come to us, in their application will be that letter of approval. We won't have any interaction with the school board for that. They act on their own. And that's when they do it countywide, which there's pros and cons to it. I think there's more cons than pros. And the reason why I say that is because now you have young school-age kids being bused all over the county to schools that are nowhere near where they live. And I think that's wrong. But that's a totally different issue for a totally different day.
Next question is referencing the Jefferson apartments at Lake Howell that were built, or are being built. They're currently under construction at the intersection of Eagle Circle and Redbug Lake Road. Just to clarify for everyone, that is no longer within unincorporated Seminole County. So before anyone asks, the County Commission, Seminole County, had nothing to do with that zoning approval, anything related to that project. That was all City of Castleberry, because City of Castleberry annexed that several years ago. So that's my preface to this question. The question is from Jeff Dixon: do the new apartment housing could be developed in...
I can't hear you. What'd you say?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. Do the new apartments at the intersection of Redbug and Eagle Circle affect how much new additional housing could be built in and around Deer Run in any way?
The way it would affect Deer Run would be school capacity and road capacity of that intersection. Those are the two things that I can see right now.
Next question goes back to drainage.
Mm-hmm.
Since all the drainage of the Deer Run development travels through the golf course, eventually ending up in Lake Howell as a part of the Howell Creek watershed,
Correct.
And eventually ending up, the water eventually goes to the St. Johns River. Does the St. Johns Water Management District have any say, influence, or sway in this property being developed, either for the purposes of housing or as a park?
So every development you do, you have to show how you're handling the stormwater or the drainage. And there are a lot of calculations about stormwater, about retaining it, about the flow of it, how do you release it, and that all has to be approved, number one, by the county, but then it has to be approved by St. Johns Water Management District. So they have a lot of approvals that they have to go through to do that. I'll also tell you, I think it was in 2009, I think it was, if my memory right. If you go on the other side of Redbug Lake Road, there is a retention pond there before it gets into Lake Howell. That's the county. The county built that. I was on the county when we approved that to improve the water quality of the stormwater going into Lake Howell. But to answer your question, everything you do with development from a stormwater perspective and a drainage perspective has to be approved by the state. And then they actually come back to make sure that you actually did it.
All right. I think we have two final questions as far as I can see. The first is, there's been some reference to a community survey that the county would or possibly might do that would be sent out to the residents of Deer Run. Can you explain what that is, what it's for, and how it would work?
Well, we want to know, we'll probably have community, as we move forward, if we were doing this passive recreational park and trying to negotiate a deal with the property owner for the golf course, there'll be quite a few community meetings. We're going to get to know each other in quite amount of detail. Like that's how we did it with Rolling Hills. And with that, when a plan is put together, we have to put something on the table first before we ask you a survey, because we're going to want to know what you think. We want to have full buy-in of the residents that live in this area. And at the same token, before we actually do the survey, we're going to want your buy-in and what your opinions are to try to figure out what this passive recreational park would look like or not look like. But we couldn't do it at this time because, from what I'm hearing from everybody, nobody wants to develop it. I get that. Outside of that, what other question am I going to ask? Because If I say, you want a park? Yeah, I want a park. But what kind of a park? There's more questions now than what there are answers. And until I actually formulate something to actually give you what the picture is, it would be not fair to you to ask you that question.
Final question I have is a two-parter. The first part says, I live in Deer Run and I am interested in having the golf course become a park, but I want to know how much it might cost me as a taxpayer. Can you speak to that at all? And then the second part is, if we as homeowners support the idea of the county buying the golf course to turn it into a park, what can we as individuals or HOAs do to help make that opinion known?
Okay. First of all, be patient, number one. Number two, tell us what you think via email. There are 5 county commissioners. Write all of us. And don't be bashful. Tell us what you think. That's what they did at Rolling Hills. In fact, what I'd like to do, and I have no problem saying this publicly because I'm going to say it here tonight, I would love to introduce the Rolling Hills group to you all so you can understand more what they went through. And it was frustrating at times because, and it's interesting how you develop friendships through this whole process. And there are several people that I get phone calls and like, Bob, is this really going to happen? We're going to really have another meeting where nothing's going to be said. I'm like, you got to be patient. I can't tell you anything more, but you got to be patient. And so I want you all to get to know those people. And I think there's a lot of lessons learned. The advantage that you have over them is that they did not have an HOA. So they had to really hit the ground running and form their own group, their own website and everything else. And they got organized very well, and they actually went door to door. The taxing district, or the MSBU that we formed, was for the mitigation or the cleaning up of the contaminants of the golf course because of the pesticides and the chemicals that was used in all the tee boxes. I believe that cost was somewhere around $1.5 million. And to be fair to the residents, there was 2 price structures. One for people that lived on the golf course and one for people that did not live on the golf course. And I believe if you lived on the golf course I think it was 10-year, it was a 10-year thing, and you can do more than 10 years. It's up to the residents to decide. And I think if you lived on the golf course, it was $135 a year. And if you didn't live on the golf course, it was like half of that, which is, and I may be wrong with the numbers, but I can get that information for you.
Okay. One other question is snuck in, and I think this is a really good, if everyone will indulge me with one more question. I know we said we were done, but since it's Deer Run and Eagle Circle, this is a question about eagles from Jeff Dixon. The former golf course is home to a lot of wildlife, including bald eagles, the American bald eagle. A wildlife analysis was submitted by the applicant in his development, and it stated that no active eagles on the property, but particularly Mr. Dixon, if I'm remembering correctly, actually lives very close to where the pine tree nest is. He says that the eagle has returned and is actively nesting. So his question is, if the either development does go through and this becomes an active development housing situation, or if the county were to buy it as a park, how would the wildlife be affected, particularly eagles?
Okay, so I'm gonna go a couple different ways, so it may be a little bit scattered, and then I'll come back to what I think the answer should be. If you believe there's an active eagle's nest, I would definitely contact the Birds of Prey Audubon Society in Maitland. You want to make sure that they're involved. They are the local experts. I will tell you that they do a phenomenal job with the Birds of Prey, not just in Seminole County, because they actually help us with several sites, but they do a phenomenal job throughout all of Central Florida. And they're located in Maitland, and they will be more than happy to come out and help verify that. I think you, as a resident, if you're thinking that there's an active eagle's nest, you should take photos of it and send those photos not just to all 5 county commissioners, but the Director of Development Review, which is Rebecca Hammock, and make sure that we as a county is aware of that. I don't know the process of registering an eagle's nest, but there must be one, and it can't be too hard to do because it hasn't been the first time it's happened. But we need to make sure that it's documented. I can tell you with an active eagle's nest that I believe it's 500 feet you have to stay away from it when they're there. And on the properties that we own, and there are quite a few eagle's nests, we actually rope it off and we put signs up and we make sure that residents or any people that are hiking in that area stay out of that area. And I can tell you personally, by accident years ago, I wasn't paying attention. I walked in that area and I have no idea where this person came from, but I was told emphatically within minutes of walking over that line to get out of there. And so people do pay attention. Also, every time there's development, they have to do a wildlife study to show what wildlife is on that piece of property and to make sure that there's either no endangered animals or protected animals. And that's why I think it's important that if that is an active eagle's nest, that somehow it is registered immediately. Hope that answers your question.
A follow-up question from Jeff, just to confirm, is the developer, if he proceeds with his application, only required to perform one wildlife analysis? I think where this question is coming from, Commissioner, the eagle's nest in question actually is registered with Florida Fish and Wildlife. It's actually going back all the way to 1971 is when it was documented. It's one of the oldest in the county. But in that analysis, wildlife analysis that Mr. Dixon is referencing, that was submitted as a part of the development application by the golf course owner. And it stated, according to that one analysis, that particular company who conducted that particular analysis believed that the eagle's nest had been abandoned.
Yeah.
And so I think what Mr. Dixon is asking,
how do we what we've done in the past, if someone can show us proof that there is more activity or new activity, we can make them go back and re-look at their study. I would have no problem doing that. But definitely contact my office. And my office number, if you don't go to the website, is 407-665-7215. And I'd be more than happy to help you register that or re-register it with the Florida Fish and Wildlife.
All right, so I don't see any other questions in the chat box, so I want to thank everyone who came out tonight. Again, if there are any other questions, anything that comes up, if you're thinking a few days from now that you might have a follow-up question to something like this, I substantially, strongly encourage you to reach out to Commissioner Dallari. I know he would be happy to speak with you.
Deborah, if we could, I know Commissioner Constantine is still on. I'd like to give him a minute, if that's okay with everyone. Commissioner Constantine's been very involved, not just with Deer Run, but Sable Point, as well as Wakava Golf Course. And he's known as being a very staunch environmentalist, if I may say. So, Commissioner Constantine, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, Bob, thank you very much. And just to those people in Deer Run that are concerned right now, I just want you to know that your district commissioner, myself, and hopefully all the other commissioners are very attuned to the concerns you have. We're looking at so many different golf courses right now that over the last 6, 7, 8 years have come to us and needed change. Actually, the Sable Point one started with a problem in 2002, and only until the district commissioner, myself, got involved when I got elected in 2012, were we able to come to some conclusion for that. So as Commissioner Dory indicated, nothing happens quickly. We started with the Rolling Hills in 2014. And I don't know, Bob, if you had said who was there, but I was the one that made the motion to purchase Rolling Hills. So I just wanted to make that clear. And the fact of the matter is, though, one size doesn't fit all. We don't know what exactly the developer is asking for, and we can't tell him what or what not to ask for. I can just tell you that we, both Bob and I, and as I said, hopefully the others, are very concerned about your quality of life and what is important to you. And therefore, we're going to look at every aspect of this and try to fit your whatever happens here into something that's a win-win for everybody, just like we were able to do with Rolling Hills, just like we were able to do with Sable Point, and others. So I just wanted to thank you for letting me participate, and thank Commissioner Dallari and Deborah for allowing me to be able to listen in. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Commissioner Dallari, did you want to give your phone number one last time in case anyone has any questions to follow up?
I'm going to give you two phone numbers. My office number is 407-665-7215. The person who will be answering that call, that 9, would be Kendra. She does a phenomenal job, and I will tell you, all phone calls and emails will be answered that day, unless it's on a weekend. You can't do that, obviously. And then if you want to call me personally, my personal cell number is 321-282-8730. And it's all good at the brochure right there.
And with that, I'm going to thank everyone again for coming out. Thank you, Commissioner Constantine. Thank you, Commissioner Dallari. And just to let everyone know, the next thing, keep your eyes peeled for October 27th. That's when we should expect to have our next update. And so I think this was a very useful, very informative session. We're going to be hopefully doing more of these in the not too distant future. So if you know anyone who was not able to join us here tonight, let them know that, and also have them go to, as I said, this recording should be available within the next few days up on SaveDeerRun.com's website. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a blessed evening, a safe evening, and I say good night to everyone. Take care.
Thank you.